I'm Autumn Brown, frontwoman of the soul pop band Autumn, a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements, living on Dakota and Anishinaabe land, currently known as Minneapolis.
And I'm Adrienne Marie Brown, a luscious Black queer witch writer auntie. Did I say rich? Because I'm not. A luscious Black queer witch writer auntie. I wish, honey. An apocalyptic cosmic optimist and a gardener of healing ideas. I live in the land of the Okinichi, Shikori, Spurure, Tuscarora, Eno, and Lumbee peoples, where we say, bless her heart.
Rich in love.
So rich in love.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World.
Our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, vigor, and curiosity.
As a reminder, we have no ads. We are listener supported.
So join our Patreon for exclusive content.
Exclusive.
Hello, my sister.
Hello, darling. We're back with another Artist Fractal.
Artist Fractals in the house.
Today, what we came to talk about is project management.
PRM.
In relationship to, not to be confused with CRM, in relationship to project management, in relationship to making art.
Yes. Yeah. I think I'm really excited we're talking about this because I feel like when I was a young artiste, when I was looking at artists I definitely, I didn't imagine any aspect of project management. Like to me, it was just like an artist furiously like making a painting, it was only Frida Kahlo. Basically, I was just like, what is Frida Kahlo doing? How did she do it? And I wasn't thinking about like making any kind of plan for the work or thinking of it as a project that needed management, right? It was just like, I'm making something that's going to almost make itself. I just have to be there doing it. And I feel like one of the things that's been so exciting for me to understand is that each thing I want to make, whether it's a song, whether it's a story, whether it's a novel, book, collaboration, like anything that I want to create with someone else is a project. And there are good ways that I can set that project up for success. That's what I mean by management. Like I think of movement generation, they talk about ecosystems as like management of home.
Economy.
It's like economy. Sorry. I know. I was like, what word am I saying? Economy is like the management of home. And I think of it as like, oh yeah, I just need to manage the home of this project. Like I need to make sure that I have created time and space and resource for whatever this is. And I don't always have to know on the front end, where is this project going to go? Right? Like sometimes it's just like something will come and I'm like, I just need to make this. And so I need to carve out some space to make this. With other projects, I'm like, I need this in the world. I need to make this in such a way that it goes in the world. And so I need to project manage this such that I have like, oh, there's someone who's resourcing and supporting me to create this. There's someone who's helping me at the end to distribute whatever it is I've created, right? Because I'm like, I just made it, honey. I'm not taking it to the bookstore. Help, So trying to figure out like what are the pieces of it. And after I finish Emergent Strategy, which I think of as like my first book in the sense that it was like I did something where I had to be by myself making something of this scale. Once I did that, I was like, okay, now I have a sense of how I project manage a book. And that way has held me down pretty clearly, which is, I'll say the basics for me. And then I want to hear how you approach this. So one of the things like the super structure is that I have really built my life such that everyone who's working with me sees what I'm creating, whether it's writing, making songs, writing speeches, whatever it is that I'm doing, they see the value of that. So the first aspect of project management to me is like finding the people who will support me, who really see the value of like what it is I need to do and make, and that they have skills to bring to the table, right?
Project management starts with building the team.
It starts with building the team for me, right? Mm-hmm. And it could be small. It could just be like one other person who's just like, I'm going to hold boundaries for you, or I'm going to hold your schedule for you, or I'm going to do that. For me, it's like scheduling, contracts, like financial management, stuff like that. I'm like, when I'm creating, I don't want to think about any of those things. I need to like not have that, but I need to know that it's handled. Otherwise I'll stress. Like I don't write well when I'm like there's details that are not being handled well beyond my purview. I'm like, I need to know that that stuff is handled. That's part of how I am able to manage what I need to manage. And then I give people the parts that they need. So right now, my agent is part of helping me keep my timing, the pace at which I'm writing. And it's not the pace. She's not like, you need this many words by this time, but she's coming every few weeks and just being like, how's it going? Checking in with me. Are things moving along? Am I happy with the pace, et cetera? So those are some of the pieces.
Before you had an agent, did you have someone, like for emergent strategy, did you have someone playing that role for you?
Yeah. So when I was working at AK Press is a collective. And so they had like all these different people. And there's always one person who was like the point person. For a long time for me, it was Charles, who's one of the founders of AK, he's not with AK now, but for years it was Charles. And so Charles would be the person who I would check in with every so often and just be like, it's moving in the right direction. But with AK, I very rarely had like hard deadlines that I was working towards. It was more like, I'm going to write this. And when I'm ready to, I'll send you my manuscript. And then they were like, cool. Right. Anarchists, love them. So I feel like I had to do a lot of figuring out though, like within the container, like how do I manage this? And some of the things I found were, I'm not the kind of person who, and I've done it a couple of times. I've done like NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month or things like that, which are really about like pushing out number of words every single day to produce a book. And I find that that's really nice for fiction. It really helps me get a lot out for fiction, but generally for nonfiction, that's not the way that I want to write. It's much more like I need to do a lot of reflecting and thinking and researching and reading, and then something will produce. And so when I'm actually in that writing mode, I'm writing like 2 to 4 hours a day, where I'm actually just sitting and being like, okay, let me work what I've got here.
Yeah.
Taking breaks, taking care of my body, taking care of other things. It's really important to me that I take care of my body as if I'm a professional athlete when I'm in this writing mode. Like, I'm just like, okay, this is like the project I most need to manage is actually my own well-being so that I can produce this thing. Like I can't run myself ragged until the very, very end of my project. And I always know that like the last month or so is going to be this otherworldly place of fully getting lost in the project,
right?
But understanding that that's coming. And so when I'm working on the project in the day to day, I don't need to be perfecting it. I can be like editing and moving stuff, but I don't need to be like landing every word and every sentence or, getting too scared about things being out of order, because I know that I've given myself time at the end of the project to go in and kind of finally tune it and go through it. I mean, I just will then go through it over and over and over and over and over again. But there's this long period where it's just doing taking the incoming and transmuting it into the work on the page. Technical things, I always have Scrivener as the first place that I'm doing a large scale writing project in. And I know that I've started a project when I open the Scrivener file and like set it up. Right. And I'm like, okay, boom. Now I have a team in place that is protecting my time and my space in whatever ways are needed. The people who need to know in my life, that's another piece of my project. I let people know, like, I'm writing this. I'm working on this now because writing is such a weird, invisible job. And people will be like, oh, you just don't seem to have anything on your schedule. And it's like, writing is the thing on my schedule all the time. Like it's always on there. And then I set up the Scrivener and
I want to lift up just a few different things that I'm hearing in what you're saying. Cause like some of this, cause I'm thinking about the person who's listening, who's like, I'm not a writer or I'm not getting paid to write books. And so I can't see myself in what Adrian's describing, but I want to pull out the themes of like, here's what Adrian's talking about for you listener who is like, but I'm not a professional writer. So,
well, and just before you even say that, just real quick, so everyone knows, this book is the first time I've ever had, like, I'm getting paid to write a book and that's the only thing I have to do right now.
Totally.
So just want people to know, like, this stuff is stuff that I developed when I had like full-time jobs and I was writing around those edges. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I want people to be able to hear what's here past the words. Like people get intimidated by the word agent, or you know what I mean? It's like, they don't, you know, I want our listeners to really be able to hear what's past the thing that you might be like, well, I don't have that. I don't know what you're talking about. So the things that Adrienne is talking about, build the team. And that is about having structures of accountability, right? So like that could be like if you're in like if you're in Adrienne or I's situation, that might be like agents and editors. But if you're not at a place where you're publishing at that level, that could look like a group of writers that you are working with on a regular basis, right?
Exactly. Or your readers, you know.
There's the other things that I was hearing were treat it like a job. Right. And this gets into, I think, this important part of project management, which is like understanding the value of your own time, which I can circle back to.
Yes.
But treating it like a job and like delegating time inside of your own schedule, like it is your actual job.
Yes.
And then two other things that I heard you name were like, you were talking about software, and I would guess I would expand that to be like, planning for the supports that you need for the actual creative process that you're undertaking. So in the case of like developing a major manuscript project, Scrivener is like one of the best softwares out there. But then for our listeners, if you're doing other types of artistic projects, just think about like, what is the software? What is the platform? What is the, like, what is the medium that you're working in, and ensuring that you actually have adequate support for the thing you're trying to make.
And where are you saving your work all the time? Saving your work and backing it up and all that. Like, I really like to documenting, this is part of why
your own process.
Exactly. Like my first drafts are almost always in Google Docs. I'm trying to get off of Google, but right now they're still on Google. And it's like, because I know that it's all being backed up all the time. And then I grab it from there and copy it over into Scrivener when I'm ready to start structuring and editing.
Right.
But because I'm like, I am so scared to ever lose a sentence.
Right. And then the other thing I heard you name was building in time for correction and like honing, but really like thinking about the stages of life of the artistic process, so that like your project management includes like making time for creation and then making separate differentiated time for correction and perfecting of the thing that you're actually trying to make.
That's right. That's right. That's a big part of it. I know this, well, maybe we can do a whole other session around like self-care during the writing process, because that feels like part of the project management to me, is that I really am like, how am I eating? Like, how am I moving my body? How do I make sure I don't, just get stuck in, how do I make sure this doesn't take away from the quality of my life, but add to it?
Yeah, that does feel like a separate.
But it's also part of project management, but I think we can go so much deeper into it. But like
management of self, like in some ways, as an artist, you are always the project you're managing, And then I think the last thing I just want to say on here, and then I want to ask you, is managing for procrastination, or understanding what procrastination is inside of your project process. So I think a lot of times in other work, there's a way that's like, oh, I'm relating to this other person and they're going to hold me accountable and they're going to like drive me along, or we've got these shared deadlines. But with writing, like almost everyone I know has what feels like a procrastination phase of it, a place where they're like, I'm doing something else. I don't know why I'm wasting my time. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And like, for me, it helps to understand like that's part of the process. I need to be able to zone out. I need to be able to like let my mind wander. And then the thing I keep track of is, am I still producing at a rate that feels like exciting and good to me? Right. Even if I do spend all this time like in outer space. And it's really helpful to be like, oh yeah, like, or procrastinating with other work. And I think that's one that like can be really debilitating. It's like, oh, I filled my time up and now somehow my book isn't moving or my writing isn't happening. And it's like, now you have tipped so far into procrastination that you're not actually carving out. No, you're not just procrastinating, you're avoiding.
You're avoiding, you're just not doing it. All right. So sister, I wanted to share my way first because it feels very fluid and kind of like, very emergent, very, 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 very emergent. But it's also like the project management of someone who's like, I have no kids. This is the only thing I'm doing.
Right, right.
This is the way, I have to structure my stuff. And I wanted to have you go second because watching you do this book project you just did, I was blown away by the professional project management that you brought to the table. So can you talk a little bit about what project management looks like for you?
Well, yeah. And actually the place where I was going to find my way into this was actually looking at it through the lens of project managing my albums.
Oh yeah, girl. But everything you do, you bring that.
Yes. I project manage my life. Yeah, for sure. But so I can talk about all of it, but because I think the thing I want to do for our listeners out there, I want to zoom out and be like, what is project management? It's accounting for what is it? It's accounting for role, responsibility, accountability, and timeline, right? And it's a skill set that I think is really undervalued. It's undervalued for sure in the social justice movement ecosystem context, but it's also like not something that is often like fostered for artists, but actually can be so transformative once it's fostered inside of us and inside of our lives, it can be really transformative for our process. I'm really lucky with my band. My core collaborator in my band, Nehemiah Luckett, he and I have like almost exactly the same. One way of looking at it would be like we're totally balanced, right brain, left brain people. So,
I love that.
Just as organized as creative, right? And so, when we work together, it's like this gorgeous mashup because it's like he loves spreadsheets, I love spreadsheets. He loves a schedule, I love a schedule. It's like it's not like I'm bringing it and he's bringing this other thing. It's like we're both kind of bringing both of those things, and so then we'll often. We'll find ourselves working in something and he'll be like, I think, and I'll be like, I'm already typing it, and it's like very, very sweet and special. But one of the things that we have found that's been really important part of our process, like we're both spreadsheet people, but we don't have spreadsheets for no reason. We have spreadsheets for the sake of like actually organizing our artistic process towards our shared goals. And so, so when we were starting the process of putting together the EPs, we literally had this overview spreadsheet where we listed out every single song that we were working on. We would list out literally the BPM, the beats per minute of each song, whether there was a demo recording or not, what stage of the demo recording was in, whether we had sheet music for it or not, what the instrumentation of that was, where we were in the arrangement process, who were our sonic references for the music, and like anything else we needed to know heading into the studio about that song. So we were literally like with each track that we were recording, we were organized around like, what are we trying to do and how is that in keeping with like the overall thematic work of this body that we're trying to create. And then when we would go into recording, and we do this both for when we're doing our music retreats with the band, but also when we go into studio, we have a wall-to-wall schedule for our recording time where every single hour of our studio time is accounted for, where we have a plan around it. Then we improvise within that. So it always ends up looking a little different than our schedule, but it actually gives us a structure inside of which to play rather than showing up and being like, okay, what are we going to do? It's about planning it again, thinking through that lens of like role, responsibility, accountability, and timeline. Project management is basically looking at what is the end goal and how do we ensure that everyone is playing their position so that we can like meet that end goal. But I would say, to your point about like putting together a manuscript is really different in large part because, when I'm working with my band, we all have really discrete roles that we're playing in the process. Working on my book, it's like, okay, I'm drawing on a lot and I am I am basically the sole person responsible for what the finished product looks like, right?
Yes.
And so,
or at least in a way, like to a certain point, right? It's like my role is to make sure this gets to the point that someone else could actually look at it and give feedback.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of my book project, I mean, I was also very lucky with this book because it's based on a body of work that I had developed in the form of trainings and keynotes and workshops and, things that I had taught, material that I had recordings of myself teaching. I had a lot of existing material to work with. And so a lot of my writing process was about organizing my existing material and then having a stepwise process by which I turned that material into narrative. Now, of course, there's a huge difference between a speech and a chapter. As you know, there's a huge difference between a workshop with a bunch of participants in it and an actual story that's told in a way that a reader can consume. And that's so, so for me, my book writing process was about like organizing, taking all this existing material and throwing it on a timeline. And the timeline was, how am I organizing this material into a narrative structure where I knew what was beautiful was that because of the book proposal, I knew what all was going to be there. And I had a rough sense of the order. Mm-hmm. But that meant that I was able to like follow spirit in the actual work. And so I ended up working on chapters in totally different order than what was, in the proposal. And then once I was reaching the end of the process, the order of the book started to like naturally reveal itself based on in part in relationship to what I had instinctively or intuitively wanted to work on. Exactly. And I think that that's the other thing I like to highlight about the beauty of project management is that if you have a really good structure in place, it makes room for intuition.
Exactly.
And it makes room for your own creativity to kind of reveal to you like what is needed.
Exactly. I think I say this a lot to people because I'm like, I am not a chaotic person in terms of my life, right? Like I have a lot of like order, like my home is in order, my life is in order. Like I just generally have always been that way, Virgo, like I'm just like, I am what I am. Like I can't help it. It's orderly. I like everything to be in a place where it belongs. And so then taking the artistic leap, the foundation is really orderly and solid. And then that allows me to go have these like, oh, today I am going to write for 12 hours and like, eat a gummy bear or whatever, because it's like, I built that space into the
gummy bears.
Yeah, but just one gummy bear, if you know what I mean. So
I feel like now I know.
Also really helpful for writing, right? But I do think that there is something, what else was I going to say? There's one other thing in the project management piece that's like, all of this, because I think you can be as emergent or as structured as you want to be with a project. But if you want it to come into the world, to me, that's when project management comes online, right? Is that like, I have novels, I have ideas that are in the back burners of my mind. Mm-hmm. There's no team around it. There's nothing around it yet. It's something that just exists. Sometimes I might jot stuff down for it. I'm constantly creating projects that don't currently have a management system at all. And so they may never see the light of day. I'm still creating. And that's, I feel like a perfectly legit thing, right? Like totally. I'm creating all the time. But when you want something to be shared with the world, that's when all of this comes online, which it's like, okay, if I want this to be shared with the world, it will help me to give a timeline, even if it's one that I'll adjust later. Yes. It will really help me to have a sense of, this is the starting timeline that I can imagine it's going to take for me to do this well. And that doing it well is important, like not good enough, not eking by, not throwing something on the page, but like, this is how long I know I'm going to need to even imagine doing this well. And building in some time for procrastination, getting lost, conflict, all the things that happen along the way.
Right. And there's something about initiation where it's like, once you've initiated the project, once you've started, the other things that are required to complete it I believe in the power of initiation. It's like, once you start, the things that you need will actually start arriving in your life because you started, but you actually have to begin in order, like you can't just be in ideas land, you know? So it's like,
yeah. And even for some people, like the initiation is the point of sharing. So there's a lot of people who are like, there's something all the time, but you've never shared it with anyone. And I have actually a lot of people in my life who I've coached through this moment where they're like, yeah, I'm working on this book. And I'm like, who have you shown it to? Nobody. Right? Like nobody has ever read any of it. And there's this hyper preciousness that can exist, especially if you've never actually published something before, or if this is your first time trying to try to do a new kind of art or share a new aspect of your artistic self.
Right.
And so I always tell people that I'm like, even if it's just one person, find someone to share it with, find someone to tell about the dream that you have for it, the timeline you want for it. Like I think those acts of initiation, maybe that'll take us to the next conversation we want to have around altar building, because that feels all of a piece. Totally. Yeah, this feels like a good touching our toe into project management.
Beautiful.
I feel good.
What a great place to land.
My sister.
Okay.
Yeah, I love you.
Love you.
Shake these bones, oh God, shake these bones, oh
Thanks for listening to our show. We're on Instagram at End of the World PC.
You can make a sustaining donation to our show by visiting our page at patreon.com/End of the World Show.
Another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're an iPhone person. This helps people looking for good new content to find us.
How to Survive the End of the World Show is produced and edited by the strikingly handsome Zach Rosen. Transcripts are in our show notes and on our website at endoftheworldshow.org.
Music for today's show comes from Tunde Laniran and the Banksons.
You know, I gotta shake these bones, shake